بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. We continue our discussion about قاعدة نفي الحرج, and then inshallah we move on to قاعدة al-Yad. We have only 1 point left from قاعدة نفي الحرج, and that is whether this rule applies only to al-Ahkam al-Taklifiyah, or it can also be applied to al-Ahkam al-Wad'iyyah. You remember the difference? So al-Hukm al-Taklifi is one of those 5 rulings which are directly related to the obligations and duties of mukallaf. Wujub, hurma, karaha, istihbab, ibaha, these are ahkam al-taklifi. But al-hukm al-wad'i is about a condition, a situation, like milkiyya, zawjiyya, tahara, najasa, shartiyya, sababiyya, mani'iyya. These are hukm al-wad'i. So certainly qa'idatun nafi al-haraj applies to hukm taklifi. Yeah, all these cases we have been saying. For example, if you are in a condition that making wuzu with water requires great difficulty, something that normally people don't cope with, there is haraj, then in that condition we said there is no wujubul wudu. Yeah, we said qa'idatun nafi al-haraj removes the necessity of wudu. You do tayammum. The question is not about hukm taklifi, it's clear. The question is about hukm wad'i. Okay? Can we also remove hukm wad'i when there is haraj? So the author, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah, says we have to make a distinction, tafsil, a distinction. If the problem is solved just by removing al-hukm al-taklifi when there is haraj, we stop there. We don't touch hukm wad'i. But if the problem of haraj is not solved unless we move on to the hukm wad'i ayzan, then we have to also remove hukm wad'i in that condition. For example, there is a wife, a woman is married to someone, and her husband treats her very badly and makes life very difficult for her, and in particular doesn't let her to go outside home, even for reasonable things, So you have to always be at home unless, for example, I take you. So for this lady not to visit her parents, not to go to Hose to study, not to go anywhere, so it's very difficult. What should she do? Of course, this is faqih, dealing with this case. We say there is in normal condition an obligation for the wife having the permission from husband, okay, or agreement from husband for going out. That hukm taklifi is now causing haraj. So she doesn't need to observe that. She can go out without her husband agreeing. She will try, but if he doesn't agree at all, so as much as haraj can be over, she can go out without permission. So this is hukm taklifi is removed. But what about zawjiyya, which is hukm waz'i? Also, can we say the zawjiyya is also going to be removed? So, for example, she can come out of this marriage because of this. We say in this case, because haraj is removed just by having no further taklif, then we cannot touch zawjiyya. They remain husband and wife. Yeah? Because the problem was not with marriage. The problem was with this aspect which we can fix it without touching zawjiyya. Is it clear? But there can be cases that haraj can only be removed and fixed if hukm waz'i is removed. Like, for example, a person has purchased something and has been, deceived. He's maghboon. Okay? He didn't know, for example, what's the value of this thing. And now he realized that he has purchased this in much, much more expensive price. So, this person, for example, suppose is going to become bankrupt, his life is going to become miserable, there is going to be haraj. It's not something easy for him, because sometimes you make lots of transactions and some of them don't work. But this is very critical for his life. So there is haraj for him. But here, haraj cannot be fixed unless we give permission to cancel that transaction. So we have to touch hukm waz'i. That we say, okay, milkiyah is not transferred. You can claim back your money and give this to the seller. Okay? So Sheikh Irwani says we make a distinction. Whether haraj can be fixed with removing hukm taklifi only, or it needs to remove hukm waz'i. If it can be fixed only by removing hukm taklifi, then hukm waz'i, which is there, remains intact. Like zawjiyya, for that woman which you mentioned. But if haraj is caused by hukm waz'i, and we cannot fix the problem of haraj unless we find a solution for this hukm waz'i, then nafy al-haraj applies to hukm waz'i as well. So basically, in Islamic Sharia, according to this view, in Islamic Sharia, any ruling that causes haraj would be temporarily cancelled. In that case, we are not saying all circumstances. We are saying in that circumstance that causes haraj, that ruling is removed. That ruling can be taklifi or can be waz'i. But only that ruling which causes haraj. So if there is a case that we have hukm taklifi and hukm waz'i, but only hukm taklifi is causing problem, we don't touch hukm waz'i. It's very, I think, easy. It's not difficult. Then we move on to the next qa'idah. Qa'idatul al-Yad. Yes.
Can I ask one question? Now, if this lady is stopped from going out to visit, say, her parents, and then she does it without her husband's permission, you said she can do it.
Yeah.
If it causes conflicts, what happens then after that? Because it could cause conflicts.
Yeah, that's another issue. Yes. Conflict is another issue. But as much as fiqh is concerned, yes, because this lady is a pious lady, she doesn't want to disobey, Sharia. So we say from Sharia perspective, you are not required to listen to your husband when he is making life miserable for you. Okay? But then how she should do this so that wouldn't cause, conflict and other things, that's another issue. Because at least we should support her and say that, you are not committing a sin, if if you don't listen to such a husband. Of course, this is a kind of academic discussion. Everyone should ask Marja. This is just a discussion, yes.
I think as far as I remember, this is from Sunni Manabe. There's one incident happened in the time of the Holy Prophet when a wife was told by the husband that until I come back, don't go out of the house. And he went out of the town for 2-3 days. And then her father got seriously ill and she received a message to come and see me. And she said, my husband is not here, so she sent someone to the Holy Prophet. So can you give me the permission? The Holy Prophet said, it's better not to go. So in 3 days, she sent 3 times. Third day, her father died and she couldn't go. So here, even the Holy Prophet did not allow her. So how we can adjust with this rule that a woman can go without the permission of the husband?
Because that was not Haraj. If this case is authentic, that was not Haraj. It was a visit, and her husband also was not a person who was not reasonable. She just once asked her, I am traveling, you stay at home. It's different from our case. Our case is someone who is making life miserable for his wife all the time. So it's very important to observe these rulings, but what is important is Sharia has also solutions for extraordinary cases when one party or both parties don't act reasonably. So we should have a solution in Sharia. If they are reasonable or a little bit not reasonable, still we try to observe the primary ruling. But if someone is showing no understanding and no rahmah, no mercy, then like that story of la dharara wa la dirar that we had, there is a solution. Yes.
You give the example of deception in a deal.
Yeah.
I remember I asked the question about there's deception in marriage.
Yeah.
And then you said there's no permission to void the marriage in that state. Why is it different for a deal in a business?
In some cases there is, in some cases not. In some cases there is right for cancellation, in some cases it's not. Because each of these cases have also a specific, sometimes references. And you cannot generalize without considering all those things. You remember, for example, about qa'idatul tajawuz, we said it would not apply to wuzu, because for wuzu we have a specific hadith that you have to go back if you are in doubt. Yeah, after wuzu it's okay, qa'idatul faragh, but qa'idatul tajawuz we said it doesn't apply to wuzu. So this is why we need a faqih who has all fiqh under attention, because something in this case can have impact on another case, and it's very important. Okay, inshallah we start qa'idatul Yad, one of the very important rulings or rules, and actually this is the last rule of the first volume, because this book is 2 volumes. Of course, with the edition that I have, it's one binding, but this is the first volume. Okay, then we have the second volume. Hand. Yeah.
51, page 51.
Yeah. Literally means hand. Qa'idatul Yad. But we will explain what does it mean. So, this is a rule that is used in mu'amalat normally. So, it's not something about wuzu or salat or, this type of thing. It's about mu'amalat, mostly about, for example, like ownership. Sometimes in also judgment, kitabul qadha, we need this rule. So, for example, if 2 people dispute over the ownership, how can the judge make decision? Who is the owner? Sheikh Ansari rahmatullah alayh, when he was studying istishab in Rasail, as we mentioned about some other rules, he raised one question. What is the relation between qa'idatul istishab wa qa'idatul yad if they conflict? If we have a case that there is istishab and there is qa'idatul yad, but they conflict. For example, A used to own this, but now it is in the hand of B, means under the control of B. Okay? So for example, we have a case, someone comes and says this house that this person is living in, because yad means control. Okay? You are living in a house and someone says, this was my house, and everyone knows that it was my house 40 years ago, 20 years ago, and I am still the owner. But this person has been living there, and he says, for example, I have purchased this. So what should we do? If we look at the situation now, he seems to be owner because he's living there. But we know that 30 years ago, 40 years ago, that other person was the owner. So if we want to do istishab of milkiyyah, we should assume that the previous owner is still the owner. But if we want to look at the situation now, everyone thought this person is the owner because there is no rent, nothing, People thought he's the owner. Who lives in this house? This man. Anyway, Sheikh Ansari, when he was talking about istishab, addressed this issue. What should we do when there is a conflict between istishab and qa'idatul yad? And therefore, he started talking about qa'idatul yad. Okay? So, this was a kind of opportunity that, alhamdulillah, he mentioned his ideas about qa'idatul yad. And then some other people also have followed this. But Sheikh Irwani says it seems that the first person who actually studied qa'idatul yad was Sheikh al-Naraqi in his Awa'idul Ayyam, a book on fiqh, Awa'idul Ayyam, who was a teacher for Sheikh Ansari. So it's not very, old discussion, but also it didn't start with Sheikh Ansari. One generation before Sheikh Ansari, this started. But now, alhamdulillah, we have lots of materials about this.
Is the Naraqi one of the famous Mullah Naraqi?
Yes.
The father or the son? Ahmad Naraqi or Mehdi Naraqi?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Then Sheikh Iswahani, Sheikh Muhammad Hussein al-Iswahani, Sahib al-Nihayat al-Diraya, also addresses Sheikh Iswahani. Sometimes they call him Kompani, but they say he was not happy himself to be called this. So Sheikh Muhammad Hussein al-Iswahani, who was one of the teachers of Ayatollah Khui at the time of Mirzai Naini, and he has books on usul, and he was also very philosophical.
He's Abu Hassan.
No, that's Sayyid. That's Sayyid Abu Hassan al-Iswahani. This is Sheikh Muhammad Hussein Iswahani, Qarawi, Iswahani. They call him sometimes Kompani. So he also has addressed this issue in an independent Risala essay, but he says we don't have that Risala. He says I haven't seen that Risala, but in the index of the publications, or maybe not published, but the works of Ayatollah Sheikh Muhammad Hussein Iswahani, there is a mention of an essay on this qa'idatul yad. In any case, let's, as normal, start with the definition of qa'ida, and then we discuss the proof for that, and then inshallah, if we have time, we will talk about whether this is asl or amara? Is it asl amali? It's one of the practical principles, or it is amara? Very important discussion. So first, madhmun al-qa'ida. What do we mean by qa'idatul yad? As you know, literally, yad means hand. Here we mean by yad, by hand, al-istila, to have control over something. Something is under your control. You are using it, or you have access to it. Yeah, this is yad. So, for example, there is a dress that you use. You have a book. Someone else says, this is my book, but you have it. It's in your hand. It's in your bag. So if someone else comes and this is my book, so we assume that this is the book of the person who has control over it. The other person has to prove. Otherwise, if any person comes and claims, what people have belongs to them, and then we have to give that to the people who claim, or we have to stop and go to the court, we cannot continue our life. Yeah? So we assume that people are legitimate owners of what they use, unless someone can challenge and prove that, no, I am the owner. That's possible, but it has to be proved. So, yes.
Is Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam is the first person when he had argument with Abu Bakr?
We mentioned some hadith, but we would say that there are hadiths, but those hadiths are about some cases, not as a rule. Maybe about some cases. We have to see, inshallah. Actually, there is a detailed discussion about that issue. So, what we mean by yad or hand here is to have control. Yeah? To have control, and it's under your management. It doesn't necessarily have to be with hand. It can be with hand, but sometimes, for example, maybe there is a home that even you don't live in there, but everyone knows that you have control over that home, but you have been giving as a rent or whatever, but everyone knows that you were in charge.
But now in our times,
yes,
everyone doesn't know it, but you have the legal documentation to prove that something belongs to you. That should be good enough, right?
Yeah, if there is a proof, yes. But when there is no proof, this is a reasonable way that uqala, rational people, operate. Sheikh Irwani says, maybe initially the first types of ownership also started by people securing something for themselves. For example, because in the early times, there was no buying and selling. How people used to own something, primitive human beings. For example, they used to go to jungle and there is a tree, so they pick up the fruits. When this human being takes these fruits to the cave or whatever, he is considered as the owner because he picked up with his hand and brought it under his control. So, yeah? Or for example, someone started developing a piece of land and making farming. Then he was considered as someone who has ownership over that piece of land. So initially, ownership was only through you securing something and starting using it for yourself, then other people were aware that they should not interfere. They can do something else. But now it has become more general, but still we use the term hand for this reason. What is important is you should not think that qa'idatul yad is the same as qa'idatu ikhbar dhil yad. We have other rules in which al-Yad is used, but these are different. We have qa'idatul yad, we have qa'idatu ikhbar dhil yad, we have qa'idatu ala al-yad ma akhadhat hatta tu'addi. These are different rules. You shouldn't, mix them up. Qa'idatu ikhbar dhil yad. This is a very also useful rule. What is this? Ikhbar dhil yad. Ikhbar means informing. Dhil yad means the one who has control. Zu, zi, dha means possessor, yeah? Zul yad. This is different from qa'idatul yad. Qa'idatu ikhbar dhil yad says that when someone has yad over something, has control over something, and he informs us about the conditions of that thing, we can trust him. For example, someone says this carpet is clean. You can say your salat on this carpet. He's the owner of this carpet, and he says it's clean. For you, this is enough, because he is the al-Yad, and he's informing you. You don't need to investigate. Or if he says it is najas, again you have to assume it's najas. So the one who is in control of something and informs about certain conditions of that thing, we trust. Unless another rule, overrides. But normally we trust. So, this is not about ownership. Qa'idatul yad is about ownership. Qa'idatu ikhbar al-Yad is not about ownership, it's about other conditions. Qa'idatu al-Yad is based on Yad. Qa'idatu ikhbar is based on the information, on the ikhbar. Therefore, Sheikh Irwani says, both dal and madlul are different. Dal means indicator, what shows us something. In qa'idatul yad, yad is the dal, what indicates, the sign. Yeah, yad is the sign of ownership. Yeah, so what is sign? Yad, control. In ikhbar dhil yad, what is the sign? What is dal? Ikhbar, yes, information. Madlul, what is understood from that sign? From qa'idatul yad, what we understand is ownership. From ikhbar dhil yad, we understand conditions other than milkiyah, other than ownership. It's clear? So it's different. Qa'idatul yad is something, qa'idatul ikhbar dhil yad is something else. Also, it is different from qa'idatu ala al-yad ma akhadhat hatta tu'addi. This is also another rule. Actually, this second rule, inshallah, we should also study. But basically, this is a rule about zaman. You know zaman? When you have responsibility to compensate. على اليد ما أخذت حتى تؤدي. When you take something and you are responsible for it, then unless you prove that you have given back everything, you are responsible for it. So whatever you have taken, أخذت على اليد ما أخذت, means your hand is responsible for what it has taken حتى تؤدي, unless gives it fully back.
What's the name of this qaida?
على اليد ما أخذت حتى تؤدي. You can say قاعدة على اليد, but yes, على اليد ما أخذت حتى تؤدي. For example, we have a document that you have borrowed from this bank £1,000. This is proved. Then you say, I have paid it back. You have to prove. Even if you say in the court that I have taken and given back, the judge only accepts the first part, not the second part.
So I've taken.
You have taken, this is إغرار العقلاء على أنفسهم. You say, I have given back this part, you have to prove. You cannot say, either you have to accept all my admission or confession or part, not anything. You say no. The first part is what you have control over it. The second part, you have to prove. Okay? It's very rational. So, قاعدة اليد is different from على اليد ما أخذت حتى تؤدي. Now, let's see what's the evidence, what's the basis for this قاعدة اليد. Sheikh Irwani says the most important proof or argument or dalil for this qaida is siratul uqala. This is the conduct, the practice of rational people, that in their social life they assume that people are legitimate in using what they are using. And if someone is questioning someone who is using, he has to prove. We cannot disturb life of people by those people who go around and claim. If someone lives in a house, if someone has a car, someone has books, someone has dress, someone is farming on a land, we assume that he is using this legally, legitimately. If someone claims, he has to prove. This is uqala. In all parts of the world, Muslims, non-Muslims, they have this rule. I don't think you find in any place, something different. Maybe when it comes to details, that's different. But in principle, everywhere is like this. When you go to any part of the world, to market, you go to a shop, you buy something, you assume that this person is the owner. You don't assume that this person is a thief and he doesn't own these, goods. Yeah? This is uqala. Some people have said there is also ijma. But as we have been saying many times, al-ijma, consensus, when there is madrak, when there is a basis that can be used in order to come to that ijma is not valid. We say al-ijma' al-madraki laysa bihujja, or even al-ijma' alladhi huwa muhtamalun lil-madrakiyya. Yeah? Even if there is a chance that this ijma' is based on madrak. So, we have a hadith, for example, and we have ijma'. We say, this ijma' is possibly based on this hadith. Now we have to look at that hadith. We don't need to look at the ijma'. Because they agreed on one interpretation of this hadith. If I have hadith, I as a mujtahid should look at the hadith myself. If I understand the same thing, it's okay. If I don't understand something, then their understanding is not hujjah. Ijma is hujjah for us when it is discovering the opinion of ma'soom. Kashifun an qawl al-ma'soom. But when I have a hadith here and qawl al-ma'soom is here, or an ayah of Quran is here, then it's just a matter of their understanding of this. Not that they had something which has not reached me. So I have myself look at this. So we say here, if there is ijma, because there is madrak for it, we have to look at the madrak. If madrak is siri uqala, that's the. If it is hadith, we look at the hadith. So the next discussion is about hadith. Do we have riwayat? Sheikh Irwani says, when there is siriya uqala, means something that rational people, even people who are not Muslim, people may not be religious, even they also observe this. Religious people, non-religious, all observe this. Then even if it is mentioned in hadith, then those hadiths become a kind of confirmation, imdha, not ta'sis. Yeah? It means that they are also based on what? On siri uqala. It's not that this is particularly Islamic rule. Yeah? Islam has recognized this. Like Malikiya, is ownership something that Islamic Sharia created? No. It's something which was practiced by uqala, or marriage. Yeah? And Islamic Sharia approves that or endorses that or accepts that. Maybe brings also some extra conditions to that. But basically this is imdha, not ta'sis. Imdha means to endorse, like to sign it off,
What is imda?
Imdha.
Imda.
Like signature, means to sign it off. Means you accept it. You are not legislating. So Sheikh Irwani says those hadiths that we have, actually we have several hadiths. First of all, they seem to be imdha'i. They are just confirming what is siri uqala. Plus, those ahadiths normally have no itlaq. They don't have generality, even through muqaddamatul hikmah. There are different cases. If we want to have a general rule, we should use siri uqala. But still, for the sake of tabarruk, he says, نذكر تبركا بعض الأخبار. To bless our discussion, we mentioned some of those hadiths, and these hadiths also, at least we make it clear that it's really something which is endorsed in Sharia. For example, Hafs ibn Ghiyath asks Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, قال له رجل. He quotes this from Imam Sadiq. And Abi Abdullah, قال له رجل إذا رأيت شيئا في يدي رجل يجوز لي أن أشهد أنه له. If I see something in the hands of someone, can I bear witness that this is owned by him? This is for him? By looking that someone has something in his control, he's using that. هل يجوز لي أن أشهد أنه لا? Can I bear witness that it is for him? قال نعم. According to Imam said yes. قال الرجل, then that person said, أشهد أنه في يده ولا أشهد أنه له فلعله لغيره. He still was not very sure. He said, I bear witness that it's in his hand, Not that I bear witness that it is for him. I just can bear witness that it was in his hand. He was using it. Then Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, أَفَيَحِلُّ الشِّرَاءُ مِنْهُ. This person that has something in his hand, is it permissible to buy from him this? قَالَ نَعَمْ. He said, yes. Then Imam said, so maybe it is for someone else. If you are putting his ownership under doubt, yes, logically it's possible. There's a possibility that maybe he's not the owner. But practically, we ignore that likelihood, that probability. Can you buy from him or not? Yes. So maybe it's owned by someone else. So why you can buy from him? Because you have taken his yad as a sign of ownership. أَفَيَحِلُّ الشِّرَاءُ مِنْهُ. Is it possible to buy from him? قال نعم. فقال أبو عبد الله عليه السلام فلعله لغيره. Maybe it's for someone else. فمن أين جاز لك أن تشتريه ويصير ملكا لك. How is it possible for you to buy it and then becomes yours? ثم تقول بعد الملك هو لي. Then you say it's mine. So if you can buy and then you say it's mine, so you can now say that it's his. Is it clear? وتحلف عليه. Even you say والله هذا ملكي. ولا يجوز أن تنسبه إلى من صار ملكه من قبله إليك. And you cannot say that this is the milk of the ownership of someone who was before. Then Imam said, لو لم يجوز هذا لم يقم للمسلمين سوق. If this was not possible, there would have been no market for Muslims. You know, if we wanted to not recognize Yad, we could not have any market. Yeah, because we cannot, stop, buying, selling, and say, you want 1 kilo, for example, rice. Show me the certificate that. I want a loaf of bread. Show me certificates that you own this shop. You have paid for water, for salt, for flour. You cannot do business like this. Sahih. Can you ask if we can continue a few minutes?
We are using the Qaida al-Yad.
Sahihatu Usman ibn Isa wa Hammad ibn Uthman and Abi Abdullah alayhi salam. This is a hadith which is actually sahih. And this is about Fadak. Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam said to the Caliph, أتحكم فينا بخلاف حكم الله في المسلمين. Are you judging about us different from what Allah, makes the ruling about Muslimin?
It's not there.
قال لا. He said no. So Amir al-Mu'minin said about the case of Fadak, are you judging different from the way that Allah in His Sharia judges for Muslims and makes the ruling for Muslims? He said no. The same thing. Then Amir al-Mu'minin said, okay. فَإِنْ كَانَ فِي يَدِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ شَيْءٌ يَمْلِكُونَهُ. If any Muslim has something in his control, in his yad, in his control, he is using that. ادعيت أنا فيه. And I claim that is mine. Any Muslim is using something, a book, a camel, a home, a piece of land. I go and say it's mine. And we come to you. Man tas'alul bayyina. From whom you ask proof? قال إياك كنت أسأل البينة على ما تدعيه على المسلمين. He said, I will only ask you to bring bayyina about what you claim over another Muslim, because that person is having control, is using that, and you are claiming. So Amir al-Mu'minin said, فَإِذَا كَانَ فِي يَدِي شَيْءٌ فَادَّعَى فِيهِ الْمُسْلِمُونَ تَسْأَلُنِ الْبَيِّنَةَ عَلَى مَا فِي يَدِي وَقَدْ مَلِكْتُهُ فِي حَيَاةِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ وَبَعْدَهُ. So why, if I have something in my control, and I have been controlling it and owning it from the time of the Prophet till now, and other people claim, so why you ask me for proof? You have to ask them for proof. So this is another hadith which is actually acknowledging qa'idatul yad, and both parties agreed on this as a principle. Yeah, Amir al-Mu'minin and the Khalifa both agreed that we should acknowledge al-Yad. The third hadith, Sahihatul Is ibn al-Qasim. This is another Sahihah which says that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam was asked, سألته عن مملوك ادعى أنه حر ولم يأت ببينة على ذلك أشتريه. When there was a slavery, as you know, Islam controlled it, regulated, and encouraged to freedom. So it was abolished. But at that time that there was a slavery, imagine someone who had control over slave and was selling a slave in the, for example, market, or someone went to buy the slave from him. A slave says, I'm not a slave, I am free. But everyone knows that he was acting as a slave. Is it enough that just because he claims that I am free, we disregard al-Yad, or we have to observe Yad unless it is proved? Yeah? If there is Yad, if there is established, Yad over there.
The slave says, I'm free. He claims he's free.
Yes. Because otherwise, everyone can claim he's free. Yeah? Of course, we don't like people to be a slave, but this is not the way to solve the problem. Because there can be, chaos and riots, and, So we have to regulate, but then little by little, finish it. Another case. This is muwathaqa. Muwathaqa is different from sahih. Muwathaqa is that when at least one narrator is not imami, but it is reliable. في امرأة تموت قبل الرجل أو رجل قبل المرأة.
What Imam Sadiq answered him about the slave?
He said, you don't consider claim. He said, أشتريها؟ قال نعم. It's possible to buy.
He has to prove it. حتى تؤدي, like he has to prove it.
No, this one from tuaddi. The one who claims against Yad has to bring bayyana, because that person has Yad. Okay. Someone asked Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, في امرأة تموت قبل الرجل أو رجل قبل المرأة. There is, for example, husband and wife. They had accident. The wife died before the husband, or husband died before wife. Yeah? and then there are some goods remaining. We should know which belongs to whom, and then for heirs we have to make decision. If we want to establish which was owned by the lady, which was owned by the husband, or which was for both of them, Imam said, "Ma kana min mata'in nisa fahuwa lil mar'a." Anything which is for ladies, normally, it is for that woman. Although there is a chance that maybe this man had purchased this for his mother, for example, but we cannot go with these probabilities. We assume that anything that was in that car or in that home, which was for ladies, it's for the wife. وَمَا كَانَ مِن مَتَاعِ الرِّجَالِ وَالنِّسَاءِ. But if there is something that can be used by both, فَهُوَ بَيْنَهُمَا, then it would be divided. Means it's joint. But وَمَنْ اسْتَوْلَى عَلَى شَيْءٍ مِّنْهُ فَهُوَ لَهُ. But whoever had yad and control over any of it, it's his or her. So, for example, this man or this woman had, for example, a car, and only he or she was using that. So we can assume that it was his or her, although car is not something which is necessarily for woman or necessarily for man. And it's not something that both were using. Do you understand? So it's not a woman material. It's not also something that they used both. But one of them had access and control over it. So we assume that was his or her. Anyone which had yad, yes.
This is simply a case.
Pardon?
The husband and wife separated.
Yes.
The husband paid the deposit of the car.
Yeah.
The wife is paying their installments on monthly basis.
Yes.
Now they have separated. He's claiming it's my car. She's claiming it's mine.
We look for documents then. Otherwise, if the lady was driving this car,
The husband
we
is
ask.
driving the car.
Pardon?
The husband is driving the car all the time.
The husband is driving. So if there is no document, the one who is driving, we assume it's his car. Is-
It's in his name, but she's paying the installments all the time.
So she has to prove that she has paid. If there is no document, or if it's a man, doesn't make difference. Whoever claims that I have been paying installments for someone else's car, so he has to prove. Otherwise, we assume the one who is using it is the owner. Pardon? Yes. Let me just finish this a little bit remaining. Then we leave the rest for the next session. So, he says, these ahadith, and there are some similar ahadith, they relate to Qa'idatul Yad. But, as you see, they are particular cases. There is no such a general formulation that we can use. And the main thing is when there is something uqala'i, something that rational people have accepted and implemented, even we have hadith, it means these hadiths are just based on siri uqala. It's endorsement of siri uqala in Sharia. Not that Sharia has brought a new ruling. Okay? Then there is a question here. There is a technical question here. Sheikh Irwani says, Nuktatul Fanniya. There is a technical point here. And that is, why uqala believe in Qa'idatul Yad? What's the basis for such assumption among uqala, that when someone has control over something, they assume that it is his property. Sheikh Na'ini rahmatullah alayh said the secret here, the point here is al-ghalaba. Means the majority of the cases, ghalaba, yeah, means the majority of the cases, when someone has been using something, means he's legitimate. To be illegally using, it's not that common. We don't live in a society that is full of thieves. You know, if there is a town that all people there are thieves, that's different.
Everybody owns everything else.
Yes. Pardon?
Everybody owns everybody else's.
Yeah. But in a normal situation, we assume everyone is, acting properly. And those cases that are illegal are not majority. So we can trust people. So Sheikh Naini says the point is ghalaba. Okay? Shaykh al-Iraqi, Agha Ziyauddin al-Iraqi, has another opinion. He says this is because of solving a practical question. He says it is wazifatun amaliyah. Uqala need to decide about these issues. And sometimes uqala can find the reality. There's a way to establish the reality. Sometimes there is no way, or it's impossible practically to establish reality. As a practical measure, we have to decide. So Sheikh Aghazia had the idea that uqala as a wazifaya amali, as a kind of practical duty, practical responsibility, assume that anyone who has yad over something, he's the owner. They don't want to say this is the reality. You remember in Usul Amaliyah, for example, we said you assume you have wuzu, but we don't say you have really wuzu. We say you assume you have wuzu. You remember? We said Usul Amaliyah don't establish waqi'. It is just wazifah amaliyah. Okay? So, this is the idea of Aghaziyah Iraqi.
It's like ghalaba.
No, ghalaba is Sheikh Na'ini. Ghalaba is a sign for reaching the truth, the reality. But he says it's close, but not the same. Sheikh Ansari sometimes refers to ghalaba, sometimes refers to wazifah amali. He has both. For example, he says, إن من المحتمل تمسك العقلاء باليد من باب الغلبة. He said it's likely that uqala appeal to qa'idatul yad because of ghalaba, because of majority of cases. ومن المحتمل كونه من باب الوظيفة العملية. It's also possible that it is a kind of practical responsibility, practical duty. That what should I do now? If someone says, what should I do now? Should I buy, for example, from this person, or I shouldn't buy from this person because someone else is claiming? But at the end, Sheikh Ansari prefers ghalaba. So he prefers the idea of Sheikh Mirzai Na'ini. And then he said, Shahid Sayyid Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr in his commentaries on Urwatul Wuthqa, he has Buhuth fil Urwatul Wuthqa, he says he has something which is not very clear for Sheikh Irwani, what did he mean, but he said it seems that he was also leaning towards ghalaba. He was also leaning towards ghalaba because he said uqala يبنون على اليد من جهة كاشفية الاستيلاء الخارجي عن الاستيلاء التشريعي. He said, uqala try to understand from someone practically being in charge of something that also from Sharia point of view he is also in charge. He doesn't clarify further how Ughalla does do this, but it seems that it's Ghalaba because he's trying to say that this is the kind of way to establish reality. Okay, the next issue, I just raise it so that you can think about it, but inshallah we studied before. It's very important discussion. And please study before coming. Is qa'idatul yad aslun aw amaratun? Is it asl amali, is a practical principle, or is amara? Amara, as you remember, we had in Usul al-Fiqh discussion about amarat. Amarat are those adilla, those references that help us understanding hukm waqi'i. But usul amaliyah have nothing to do with hukm waqi'i. They try to help us with understanding what is my duty now, what should I do practically. Yeah? So for example, khabar wahid is amara, because khabar wahid is telling me, even if it is not 100%, it is dhan, but it's valid dhan, what is the reality? Khabar wahid is amara. Yeah? Khabar wahid is amara. Zuhur al-alfaz is amara. But bara'at, istishab, takhyir, ikhtiyat, these are usul amaliyah. So the question is qa'idatul yad aslun aw amaratun? Is it helping us to discover who is really owner, or it's just a practical measure? And then we have another question which is very much related to this. Is this preceding istishab or not? If it is amara, it's very clear. Always amarat precede usul amaliyah. Because usul amaliyah is when we don't have amara, when we are in doubt. If this is amara, so it's clear that it precedes istishab. But if it is asl, what should we do? We say, even if it is asl, it precedes istishab. Because otherwise there is no way to use this. There would remain no case for qa'idatul yad if you want to not prefer it over istishab, because always there is istishab against it. So we say whether it is amara or asl, it overrides istishab. Okay, this I wanted just to give you an idea. Please study this because it's a bit difficult, and inshallah in the next session we inshallah finish qa'idatul yad and move on to the second part of the book. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
I think